Hey folks, today we're going to talk about my Fluval Flex. That's the 32-gallon Fluval Flex, or Mega Flex. For those of you that watched the setup video for this will be a little bit of an update. In about half the video, I'm going to talk about Anubias. And there's so many different versions of Anubias. It's one of my favorite aquatic plants. This tank has a whole lot of it. And the maintenance that I do for this, it's not something I do on a strictly regular basis, but it happens enough to where I thought maybe it'd be interesting to talk about. So here we go. Before I go any further, I'd like to say a big thank you to my Patreon subscribers. You guys really help me out, so past, present, and future, if you've ever contributed to this show to make it a little bit better, you have my undying gratitude. Thank you very much. So the Fluval Flex as a tank, speaking as an update, we'll say, has been very, very good. I'd had my ups and downs with it. I literally, last year I had a terrible time with it. Then I was able to do some maintenance and I really brought it back. Like I did an update right as soon as lockdown started to happen. I made a series of updates for all my tanks. And I remember the update, on that update, it looked just absolutely gorgeous. And then within 3 weeks, it just went crazy. Like it got crazy bad. I can't really explain exactly what happened, but I did a little bit of a cleanup and a couple of extra water changes, and pretty soon it was right back on track. And since then, it's been extremely stable. It's one of my most stable aquariums. 32 gallons is really a great size for not a small tank, not a big tank, kind of bridging that gap. As far as like what kinds of fish you can keep and the larger collections of fish that you can keep, especially if you're keeping the really smaller species. What's new in this tank are some Peacock Gudgeons. I got them at a swap a couple of weeks ago down in Chattanooga. I got, I think, 5 of them. I get a little confused because I also got some at Aquashella, but they went into a completely different tank. I love Peacock Gudgeons. I've got little tubes stashed around here, hoping maybe I'll catch them breeding in there, maybe take them and separate them out, maybe get some babies. I could easily raise some babies in the sump if I could just kind of catch them in the act. As far as the substrate and all the stuff that I use to make that work, that seems to be a recurring theme where I explore different types of substrate setups and stuff. It has worked great. It's worked kind of as expected. Everything's growing really super well. I pull these crypts out all the time and trim them. Less so with the Anubias, but we'll get to that in just a minute. I've had a really easy time growing plants in there. I do have the 2 bulbs. I get a lot of questions about these lights. They are specifically made for the Fluval Flex. So if you want to get them, you have to get them out of the parts catalog on Fluval's website, or give them customer service a call. They'll know which ones to pick. I did buy this tank myself. I bought it with my own money, and I was very happy to get it. I bought it with a couple of months of YouTube money saved up, and I was able to get this. And then another month I could afford the shipping. Fluval sent me the extra light, and a big thank you to them for sending me the extra light, because I feel like it's really necessary. You could probably grow plants, especially small amount of plants, close to the surface, with just the 1 light. But I like the 2 lights that spreads them out. You can program them in the Fluval app like the other smart lights, and they do tie in together. So you could set a program for one and then kind of copy that program to the other one. You can get really granular with these 2, and because of that, I'm able to keep it really dim and keep this light on. This light stays on for probably 14 hours, 12 to 14 hours during the day, because I can keep it dim for so long in the evenings and the daytime. Well, in the mornings and the evenings. I love this tank. It's one of my favorite of the kit tanks. It's like a tank with a built-in filter in the back. Oh, and the filters in the back have been pretty good too. One thing I have noticed on all the aquariums I've had like this, they develop sort of a surface buildup. They don't seem to process that very well. So I've added a surface skimmer to the back of this. It's funny, it sort of disappears into the back of it. It's a nice dark color. I believe I've already talked about it in one of my Aqua Shopper videos where I bring out products that I've bought. And it really made a huge difference as far as like keeping the surface slime under control. It wasn't a huge issue, but I didn't like it. And I've noticed it's kind of an issue with all the other tanks too. The Spec 16 sees it a lot less, but like the 5 gallons and the 2 gallons and stuff, all those specs, those ones with the built-in filter, they tended to always do that. So I love the layout in here. It is mostly Anubias. And I've been teasing that I wanted to talk about that this whole this whole video. So let's talk about it. So Anubias is maybe the perfect aquarium plant. It's a very low light. It doesn't require nutrients. I don't do any fertilizers in here. I have on occasion added some things, but nothing consistent in here. And you don't even notice. They do just fine. The biggest issue with Anubias really are in tanks where the balance is not really set. Before the balance is set, if nutrients get out of control, they grow very slowly. So you'll get algae of all sorts. You know, they're real susceptible to diatoms, but a lot of times, like, other animals will come along and eat the diatoms off. So those aren't so bad. But the hair algae and stuff like that, especially the blackbeard algae, is kind of it really messes up a lot of your leaves and stuff, and can look really gross, and it will just stay there. So that leaf will just kind of survive even with all that algae on it, but it kind of drags the rest of the plant down. So normally I trim those leaves off. Now over the course of time, or for different reasons, it may be a snail or other issues will cause little holes in the leaves, and the leaves will start to degrade over time. And what I do is I just prune them off. It's important, it seems really thick through here, and it is. And it's because I don't prune very often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But it's important to go through there, just kind of get the dead stuff, get the stuff that's like, it's kind of surviving, but it's not really contributing to the health of the plant very much. It seems like more of a detriment. Go ahead and pluck those things off, and it'll improve the overall health of the plant. Anubias are one of those things that you slowly accumulate over time. Because I've been able to grow it so well, it's ended up in a lot of my different aquariums, and so I have a lot of Anubias tanks. I've seen people say online before, you know, Pecktec's tanks all look the same. A lot of them do. It's true, but because I have so many of the same plants, they all come out of the same farm. I grow them all here. So the layouts are different, but sometimes once they get really overgrown, it's hard to tell. It's just a big wall of plants. You can form really, really thick areas of Anubias and kind of cause that negative space. What you really got to account for, though, are the roots. The roots can be quite ugly, and there's a lot of them. So I like to try to redirect them whenever I can into the shadowy areas. Like if you've got an area that you're not normally able to see, it's really a good idea to kind of fold those roots into there and plan for that when you're planting them. My 20-gallon dirted tank that I have not gotten around to finishing yet, it's almost done, but it needs a little bit more work. But that video I explained a lot about planning for those roots when you put the Anubias in. The big differences you'll see with Anubias will be the leaves, like the size of the leaves and the shape of the leaves. Most of them flower, which is a really neat thing. They'll flower underwater. It makes a nice little it sort of looks like a lily, I think. If they're close enough to the surface, they may shoot a stem up above the surface and flower there, and that's pretty cool too. Normally my shrimp eat the flowers after a while, and they start looking bad, and you just go in there and trim it off. The best way to trim an Anubias leaf is once you identify the leaf that you want to trim off, you follow that stem all the way to the base, and then you get a little bit of a pinch, or sometimes you can move it a little bit left and right, up and down, and it should just attach right there. And that leaves you with no rotting stem on the end of it, or some weird stem sticking out that just makes the plant look like it's dying. It's a real nice clean break, and it'll heal over nicely, and you might even get another growth right there. So there are all types of Anubias. Some of the leaves get quite large, and some of them stay very small. Most of the ones that I tend to keep are the Anubis Nana Petite. That's among some of the smallest ones, but I have seen some, there are exotic ones. It seems like a lot of the exotic ones don't seem to survive. Like, There's a couple of like the long-leafed types of Anubias that I've kept. I actually kept them out of water too, and they do pretty well in terrariums apparently. I think the biggest type that I've ever kept is the Cophilia, and I kept that in a tank upstairs. The leaves get about this big, pretty large, especially compared to the Nana Petite, which tends to be very small, like quarter-sized leaves. There's a mixture of both of those types of Anubias in here, and that's kind of the biggest varieties I can get with that. It's kind of this leaf shape. One thing I'd really love to add in here, if I could, is a little bit more color. A lot of times I'll use the fish for color. I'll try to get, I've got bright orange fish in here, and the Peacock Gudgeons can be quite striking too. But a lot of the times it's going to be just green. A lot of my tanks will be just mainly green, and just a big huge wall of Anubias with some colorful fish coming in and out of it. I do have some stem plants on the end that kind of add a little bit of color in there too, but for some reason in my area I can't seem to grow, or I can't seem to grow super colorful plants, and even plants that start off fairly colorful don't stay that way for long. So I definitely have some stuff to figure out when it comes to that. And maybe that's a fertilizer thing, or it could be CO2. These stem plants here on the end are quite pretty when they're all the way out. I've got them pruned down quite a bit right now, but as they get closer to the surface, they get nice and red, and I like that. But that's all I got. Just a few tips on Anubias, a quick update on the Fluval Flex, the Mega Flex. I'll be back real soon with another video. Until next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey folks, today we're going to talk about my Hey folks, today we're going to talk about my... Okay, now I can't say Fluval. I get stuck on words.
Fluval, Fluval, Fluval. It's the tank for you. Fluval, Fluval, Fluval. For me.
Hey folks, today we're going to talk about the Fluval Flex. It's my 32-gallon Fluval Flex, the Mega Flex.
Mega!
Holly, I like to do that myself.
Help out.
Don't do that.